All right, Clark Hunt, chairman of the Kansas City Chiefs. What's going on, Clark?
We're just here at the league meeting. It's always an exciting time, fun to get together, discuss some rule changes for the upcoming season. Always enjoy seeing everybody from around the league, and of course, when you win the Super Bowl, it's
I was going to say, is there a victory lap? Is there like
Everybody's very thoughtful, very nice, and congratulating you. So it's a lot of fun.
You were saying you're going to celebrate Andy Reid's birthday soon. What's the gift when Andy Reid wins a Super Bowl? You're celebrating in person here at the owners' meeting. Like, what's the Andy Reid birthday gift?
Well, I think his favorite gift is the chocolate cake that he gets on his birthday. But we've got a little tradition, the Chiefs, of some special watches that he and the other leadership team get from me.
We did. So Terry Fontenot, who's the Falcons GM, he was in this room last night, and we were doing watch collection stuff. So that'll be. I cannot believe the theme of watches is just going through every episode we're doing this week. So we were talking about the first time you and I met, which was in it was the year after. It was in 2012. And I drove through Mobile, Alabama, to meet you in Dallas, and the first thing we talked about was you hiring Andy Reid and the process that led to that. That you know why he sold you sold him, all of that stuff. And I want to start there with Andy. The thing that we don't know about Andy Reid that you do, just being in the facility every day, is what?
That from the moment he walked into our building, he completely changed the culture.
Sure.
And that was the reboot that we need. If you look back at that 2013 team, we had some pretty good talent on it.
Yep.
We'd had a bunch of guys who made the Pro Bowl the year before, but we just weren't being successful. And Andy literally came in and overnight changed the culture. We start off that season winning 9 straight games, which was amazing for a team that had won a couple games the year before. And it's been nothing but up since. He's amazing. I'm so happy that he's established and confirmed the fact that he's one of the greatest coaches ever in the history of the National Football League.
Take me through what changing the culture means. Like what I think a bunch of teams just hired a coach a couple months ago, and everybody says they're a culture changer. Everybody's opening press conference. Oh, here we go. We're going to change it. Like, what did that mean for Andy specifically?
I think it was getting everybody on the same page. So that's players and coaches. That if you're part of the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody's here for a common goal. This is not a place where you need to be thinking a lot about yourself. You've got to be thinking a lot about the team, and there's a high expectation, right? We expect to win, and you're expected to be a contributing part of that.
Everybody has a different story about when they started to watch Patrick Mahomes, and I remember I think it was Mike Kafka said there was one Texas Tech game on one time on a Saturday, and people started looking at it like that. And there's all sorts of that. The first time you heard the name Patrick Mahomes was when?
I heard it from our GM, Brett Veach, who wasn't the GM at the time. But he and John Dorsey, who was our general manager, had me come in and watch some tape. They wanted to show me a little bit why they were so intrigued with Patrick, and they showed me some of his games in college where he had over 600 yards passing, and was running to his left and throwing 50 yards downfield, things that you're not supposed to be able to do.
Yeah, and then that year starts, everybody talks about the practice, stuff like that. When did you know he was going to be the franchise quarterback? When did you know, obviously no one knows you're going to be sitting there with another Lombardi, 5 years from now and all that stuff, but you start to see, we say, okay, this guy's, we're actually going to not only win, we're going to win a lot, and we're going to change this franchise with this guy.
Yeah, well, I'd mentioned 2 things. One, I don't think we knew quite at that point that he was going to be the quarterback that he was, but his rookie year when he was a backup, he sat behind Alex Smith. Brett Veach would periodically send me clips of Patrick in practice, including no-look passes. And I had to call Brett and say, what's a no-look pass? I mean, I know what it is in basketball, but it doesn't really exist in football. It's like, yeah, it does. Watch the clip. And sure enough, in practice, he'd be looking this way and throwing that way. And, of course, when he started playing the next season, That's exactly what we saw from him. I remember the beginning of that 2018 season. We went to Pittsburgh, a place where we had lost so many games, usually by double digits when we went up there. And Patrick goes up there and throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns. We absolutely light them up. Then the next week, we're out playing the Chargers, and he has another big game. And it was sort of at that moment that I knew he was going to be pretty special.
Sustained success is the hardest thing in sports, in life, like in anything. It's really easy to win one Super Bowl. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's easier to win 1 Super Bowl than 3. Yeah. But obviously there are teams that can have 1-year spikes, or hey, we went all in on this year and then we made a couple trades and all that stuff. Sustained success is different. When you win one and you set out, and you guys have done it in so many different ways, with certain stars, without certain stars, after you win one, like what was the plan to, and obviously it starts with Andy and Brett and all that stuff, but what was the plan to actually have sustained success that like we've seen, and what has been the key to that from the inside?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you've got to have the right coach, which we do with Andy, and he's got a tremendous staff. And then having a young quarterback, a young franchise quarterback that you can build the team around. And Brett's done a fantastic job of that. And you've got to be willing to live through some change, right? You can't hang on to the same group of players. Right. In fact, this year's Super Bowl team, I think we had 7 or 8 players who were maybe on the active roster just 5 years before. Just to show you how it turns over. And Brett's been very adept at making those hard judgments on letting some guys go, whether it's through free agency or trades, and then doing a fantastic job of replacing them by drafting well. I think if you don't draft well, it's very hard to be successful in the National Football League, and it's particularly hard to be successful year in, year out.
Give me, when you're thinking back on it in 40 years, give me the moment from this Super Bowl that you're going to remember the most.
Boy, it was such a close game.
Yeah, of course.
And watching it, you have the full range of emotions. I'm probably going to remember the incomplete third down pass by the 49ers. Where they didn't score a touchdown despite having 2 receivers open. Chris Jones, they decided not to block him for whatever reason, and he got in on Brock Purdy pretty quickly and forced an incomplete pass. That was a pivotal play in the game and really, I think, opened the door for us.
Don't give away a scheme, but I think teams should try to block Chris Jones from now on.
Yeah, it may be so hard to do that they just gave up on it.
Okay, and then you were happy to pay a premium for Chris Jones after that to keep him in the fold.
That's right.
It just seems like, did you even know, like, obviously you know the rules of overtime, but it's like, it just felt like it was just uncharted waters. Have you ever been so nervous in those situations in the double overtime, almost in double overtime?
Yeah. Well, I think it was the first time we were living through the new overtime rules for playoff games, and I was thinking back to when we had passed the rules and trying to remember all the nuances to it. One of the interesting ones was as the period was running down.
Right. That's literally, like, I was like, I don't know what's about to happen. I was like, should they score here?
Yeah. I had a lot of people who were sitting with me were really concerned. I was like, I think I remember us voting on the fact that the game continues. Yeah. And obviously, if you watch the body language of Patrick and our offense and Andy, they knew what was going on, and they were not in a rush.
Did you know Mahomes was going to score a touchdown? Patrick was going to score a touchdown?
Absolutely. Yeah. Our offense had heated up a little bit, and that was, Patrick in his element. One of the things all the great quarterbacks have is being able to be clutch in championship moments, and that was Patrick at his best. All
right, last thing for you. It might be the hardest because you've been around the Chiefs, obviously, for a long time. You grew up in it. It's called Badasses, and it's the most badass person you've ever been around. And if an alien, the way I always phrase it is, if an alien comes down and says, take me to the badass football player, take me to the guy who was always tough, who played through any ailment, who made the play when nobody else wanted to make it in 20-degree weather, you're going with what?
So I'm going to pick a surprise for you.
Please.
Kevin Ross, a DB a small DB for the Chiefs back in the 90s. And he played on some great teams coached by Marty Schottenheimer. Sure. And I remember Coach Schottenheimer saying, look, if I ever end up in a dark alley by myself, the one person I want with me is Kevin Ross.
Oh, my gosh. And what kind of player was he?
He was a cornerback,
yeah.
But he was an extremely tough cornerback despite his 5'9" frame.
Wow. All right, we'll get some clips. We'll get some YouTube clips. Wow, I didn't know. That was off the board. I have to be honest with you, we've been doing this show for a couple months now, and nobody's ever said a player I've never heard of. So that's a beautiful poll. Clark Hunt, thanks so much for coming on. This is football, man.
Absolutely. My pleasure.